Even though the Dior brand was established on the principles of feminine beauty and traditional evergreen fashion, over several decades it has developed into daring, feminist, and forceful designs. Read on to understand the Dior brand's background and how the company evolved into what it is now. The French label, which dates back to the 1940s, has been providing customers from all over the world with some of the most beautiful garments. Whether it's a ready-to-wear dress that is appropriate for a cocktail party, or an haute couture red carpet gown that will command the attention of everyone in the room. The namesake brand of Christian Dior has also endured the test of time. It has continued to develop with the help of the many influential creative minds who have passed through its doors. The fashion company has played host to some of the industry's most extraordinary talent. It will continue to do so for many years to come. Number 1. Where and when did Christian Dior start? Even though the Dior brand was established in 1946, the fashion house considers 1947 to be its founding year because that is the year when it presented its very first collection to the public. The fashion house was established in Paris at number 30 Avenue Montaigne by Christian Dior. The debut of the label's inaugural collection took place on February 12, 1947, less than 3 months after the company was established. Before beginning his career in the fashion industry, Christian Dior was an avid art collector and gallery owner in France. After being forced to close his gallery due to the Great Depression, he found employment in the fashion industry, first for couturier Lucien Lelon, and later for fashion designer Robert Piguet. Dior was ready for his work to be exhibited, which led to him creating his own fashion house in 1946 when Christian Dior was born. Dior was prepared for his work to be showcased. Number 2. The new look from Dior. At the first presentation that Christian Dior ever gave, he introduced the world to the new look. According to Culture Trip, the idea behind the collection was to reflect the end of World War II, and it featured structured silhouettes, nipped waists, and shorter, billowy skirts. Additionally, the design was inspired by the period immediately following the war. The dresses were extravagant, with an average of 20 yards of cloth used for each. The designs created by Dior at the time were ahead of their time, so the fashion house became one of the most famous, admired, and sought after in the world almost immediately. The likes of Rita Hayworth and Margot Fonteyn, amongst others, came to Christian Dior to get their hands on a piece of the new look clothing decades ahead. Because of the prominent women who wore his designs, the company expanded rapidly. It established itself as one of the most recognizable names in the annals of fashion history. Number 3. Dior goes global. Soon, Dior became global. It wasn't until 1948 that Dior debuted in the United States by opening its first store in New York City, located on 5th Avenue and 57th Street. Along with the emergence of the brand on a worldwide scale came an enlarged collection. Dior began his business in the perfume industry by launching the Miss Dior scent, which he named after his sister. Around the same time, Christian Dior realized that for his business to successfully carry on the new look, they needed to offer the whole fashion experience. That entailed granting a license to use the Dior name on various accessories. Now, the customer of Dior can have the coats, shoes, hats, and every other piece required to capture the new look, from head to toe completely. The Dior brand continued its upward trajectory, and Christian Dior himself remained one of the most sought-after fashion designers in the world. He was even responsible for dressing Marlene Dietrich for her part in the 1950 film Stage Fright, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. She continued to stock her closet with his creations long into the 1950s, as did many other starlets of the late 1940s and early 1950s. Number 4. Yves Saint Laurent's beginning. When Yves Saint Laurent began his career in the fashion industry in 1955, he was only 19 years old and anxious to get started. He began working for Christian Dior. He started in the fashion business as Dior's assistant. Still, it took a little while for the creative genius behind the label to recognize the potential in the young Frenchman. He went on to become the creative director of the house. According to Vogue, in 1957, Christian Dior met with Yves Saint Laurent's mother to inform her that he had selected her son to follow him as the firm's creative director when the time came. Even though he was only 21, Dior could swiftly detect his aptitude for creating and his eye for fashion. Number 5. The death of Christian Dior. At 52, Christian Dior passed away in 1957 after a major heart attack. The entire fashion business shed tears over the loss of the industry star, who passed away at a young age. Saint Laurent was assigned the responsibility of the brand's artistic director after the passing of Christian Dior to keep the spirit of the company alive. The young man, who was only 21 then, continued Dior's legacy while, for the most part, preserving the designer's original artistic vision. But on the other hand, he endeavored to give the brand a more supple look by reducing the tightness of the tightened waists and relaxing parts of the structure. Because the fashion world was still trying to adjust to someone else being in charge of the Christian Dior brand, the collections were hit or miss. In 1960, Yves Saint Laurent was discharged from his position at the brand to fulfill his military obligation. Number 6. Dior's creative leaders are impressive, and the LVMH purchase is a big deal. After Yves Saint Laurent left, Marc Bowen took over and made the designs more in line with the classic style of Christian Dior. He took the idea of Christian Dior and brought it into the 1960s by making it a little more streamlined, giving it a more modern look while keeping the Christian Dior style. With Bowen in charge, Dior returned to being the brand that people worldwide loved. Bowen worked for Dior for more than 10 years, helping to build the brand and make it even more popular worldwide. He made Dior more accessible than ever by making ready-to-wear clothes and clothes for babies. The Dior brand quickly rose to the fashion world's top as more stores opened in London and Hong Kong. But Dior's parent company, the Boussac Group, went bankrupt in 1978. Bernard Arnault, the billionaire who runs LVMH Mott Hennessy, bought Christian Dior. Arnault became chairman, CEO, and managing director when he took over Christian Dior. Even after LVMH bought it, Christian Dior kept being its unique brand. In 1989, Gianfranco Ferré was hired as the brand's stylistic director. He formally started Dior Haute Couture, an essential part of the Christian Dior brand. Ferré took the brand to new heights by adding his creative vision, which included a more refined look than the brand was known for. Hedi Slimane was the creative director of Dior Homme, the brand's clothing line for men. It was also started in 2001. Number 7. Galliano's Dior Saddlebag. John Galliano, Dior's creative director after Ferré, dressed every star in the new millennium, including Princess Diana of Wales. The princess wore Galliano's purses and couture. Princess Diana's favorite purse was Lady Dior, which Galliano later renamed after Diana's approval. She promoted Dior's leather goods by carrying her black purse everywhere. Number 8. Raf Simons reigns. Galliano's Dior vision broke with tradition. Some liked it, but not all. After leaving in 2011, Raf Simons became creative director and tried to return Dior to its roots. Simons' feminine, modest designs resembled Dior. Number 9. Maria Grazia Chiuri joins Dior. M.G. Chiuri in 2016. Valentino's Maria Grazia Chiuri became Dior's first female artistic director. Being the premium brand's first female CEO made headlines, but she didn't like it. Chiuri's feminist-focused line at Christian Dior reflected Dior's original style. Chiuri introduced bold, social conscience to the label, turning it from feminine to feminist. She established Dior in modern, relevant, and classic fashion. The current time marks the conclusion of the video. The enduring popularity of Dior as a fashion house is connected to the history of Dior, which in turn is connected to Dior. What are your thoughts on that in general? So, is there anything you know besides the history of Dior and 9 reasons? If so, please write it in the comment section.